You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. We are 19 days away from SEC Football Media Days. 19 days. In 19 days, we will be in Nashville at SEC Football Media Days, getting set for the 2023 LSU and college football season. LSU goes day one again this year, and when going into media days, I always know every year there are talking points that you're going to be asked about every team. So, keeping in mind, most of the time, people who cover this league have a surface level knowledge of every team and deep knowledge of the team they cover. So LSU will take their turn at media days on Monday, the July 17th. And on that day, T-Bob and Jake and I will all do 30 interviews, because on the day that it's the team you cover's day, you end up doing interviews on all these different radio stations and TV stations or whatever. And it's interesting because you end up getting asked the same question 30 times. Because you're essentially doing the same interview in 30 different markets or whatever it may be, because everyone's asking their surface level questions of the team you cover. And a year ago, it was so obvious. It was, does Brian Kelly fit in? That was the number one question literally everybody asked. Why does this make sense? Is Brian Kelly good for this job at LSU? And it was year one expectations. When Vegas had LSU projected as a 7-win team, everyone was asking is LSU going to win 5 games, 6 games this year? So we knew that was going to be the question. This year, it's going to be very obvious. It's going to be, is LSU ready to take the next step? And they won the West a year ago. Can they defend the West? But can they win the national title? And then number 2, it's going to be, can Garrett Nussmeier challenge Jaden Daniels for the starting job? Those are the 2 questions we're going to get asked. So much of that, of course, though, depends on your schedule. I say this all the time, every year in every sport. It's not just who you play, but when and where you play them that matters so much. So a lot of times when you look at a win total projection for a team in a season, it's not just who they have, who they lost, returning production, who their coach is. All that matters, but who do you play? So consider this. CBS Sports just put out their strength of schedule rankings, looking at the SEC for this year. And, man, I'm going to tell you what, for Billy Napier in the Gators, after a really rocky year 1, he is staring down the barrel year 2. CBS Sports has Florida as the toughest schedule in the SEC for this year. And for Billy Napier and the Gators, that is that's why they're projected to be a 500 football team this year. What's so interesting to me for Lane Kiffin this year, and they've got Ole Miss number 2 on the strength of schedule rankings, by the way. Remember we talked about Ole Miss last year, and it was at SEC Media. I'll remember it. Y'all know because we referenced it a million times. My buddy Richard Cross from Sports Talk Mississippi came on AFR, and he said, look at the schedule. And we sat there, I opened it up, and we went through it, and I'm like, they're going to start 8-0. They're going to start, or they'll come to Baton Rouge 7-0 and have a chance to beat LSU to go to 8-0. And sure enough, Ole Miss was undefeated when they came to Baton Rouge because the schedule was so light early and it was backloaded, and we saw what happened. They fell apart late. Now, Ole Miss has to go to Tulane. They're playing that game in New Orleans, by the way. They got to go to Auburn. They got to play the Egg Bowl. And they draw Georgia from the East, and, of course, have to play Alabama. Brutal schedule for Ole Miss. I don't know how Lane Kiffin makes any type of a push forward. 3rd is South Carolina in the team rankings, the strength of schedule rankings, followed by Alabama, then Auburn. You noticing a trend here? Lot of SEC West opponents, teams on the strength of schedule rankings. After Auburn, Tennessee, then Missouri, and then LSU. Y'all, for whatever it's worth, LSU while we look at LSU having to play Alabama every year, but you don't draw Georgia, this is the year. This is the year for LSU. You open with a massive game against Florida State. We all know that. And I've said it before. If LSU wants to win the national championship, they got to win week 1. Because I don't think you can get to the playoff if you don't win week 1. Because we have never seen a 2-loss team make the college football playoff. If LSU loses week 1, they have no margin for error. You have got to win out to be an 11-1 team to get into the playoff. So you have no margin for error. Win week 1, and I think LSU's got a great shot of being in the playoff. You got Grambling, Georgia State, Army as your other non-conference games. Army's tricky, I get it, because they run the triple option, and you're going to see that coming up at the end of October. But we've talked. You get Florida, Auburn, and A&M all at home. Florida and Auburn are going to be super questionable this year. A&M, what really do we expect there? Yes, you have to go to Alabama, but your rotating cross-divisional we know is Missouri and Columbia. You catch some breaks on this schedule. Your road conference games with the Mississippi schools, you catch some breaks on this schedule if you're LSU. That's another reason to think, yeah, you should think very highly of the Tigers. Just to finish it out, the rest of the top 10, ranking the SEC schedules, Kentucky 8, Arkansas 9, LSU 8, Kentucky 9, Arkansas 10, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and Georgia. So Georgia having the weakest schedule is why you see everybody taking their Sharpie and just putting Georgia in the college football playoff, because who's going to beat them? They got the weakest schedule in the SEC this year. The SEC East stinks, and they draw Ole Miss as their rotating cross-divisional, and then they got to play Auburn, who's first-year head coach, and they're not even playing that game late in the season. They're playing it early in the season, so who knows how good Hugh Freeze's team is going to be at that point. So, yes, Georgia is going to walk into Atlanta as the SEC East champion. Who are they going to meet there is the big question, and LSU's strength of schedule, being what it is this year, is certainly lighter than it was a season ago, and that's a big boost for Brian Kelly in this quest to do what we've seen Kim Mulkey and Jay Johnson each do now in year 2, and that's lead their team to a national championship. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.